So, on today's podcast, we're revisiting the popular topic of why trusting the process, quote unquote, trusting the process is so difficult for people. We'll break down what truly is at play when leaders urge people to, quote unquote, trust the process, and what we can learn when we recognize there might be some slight hesitation within our teams. Why aren't they trusting the process? What can we learn from it? And what will we do next? Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast. Wherever you are and however you're coming to the podcast today, welcome back. So glad you are here. I cannot believe that we have already recorded well over 200 episodes now. So thank you to everybody out there who's been a part of this journey from the beginning. We have so many listeners that have been a part of this from the very day one. So thank you to you all that have been the OGs, the listeners from the beginning. And also welcome into all the new listeners, people that are jumping in and are maybe have joined the podcast recently. I invite you, of course, if you haven't subscribed already, to go back, listen to old episodes. There are some great topics, great interviews and chats with people that are inspiring, wonderful voices that I have been privileged to have join me on this podcast. So I hope you go back and check that out. My commitment to you, as always, is that this is a place for you to step back, to breathe, take a deep breath, think about who you are, think about the team you're leading, think about your life, your work, who you're trying to be in the world, and then to think about what is the temperature that you're trying to set, and how do you kind of continue to breathe good oxygen into yourself so that you can breathe good oxygen into the people around you. So my commitment, again, will be hopefully wherever and however you're listening to this, that this is a time for you to step back and reflect and to have some time to think and to be filled with some good thoughts. So thank you for being here and a part of this moment today. A quick favor before we dive into today's topic, if you'll stop for a second, rate the podcast 5 stars on whatever platform you're using, leave an authentic review in your own words. Those are ways in which the algorithms work and help people find the podcast and help it spread further, is rating it and leaving that authentic review with your words. And then also, of course, inviting others to join the podcast, sharing episodes that resonate with you, with your colleagues, the members of your team, people in your life, on social media, whatever's authentic for you. Those are all the ways in which this, you can help us amplify these messages further into the world. So thank you. Trust continues to be a topic within teams and organizations that comes to the surface all the time. Trust is something that I see, I feel, I know that many leaders, many teams, many organizations are always thinking about the level of trust and how do I build more trusting teams that leads to better performance and outcomes, and obviously creates cultures of care and better than cultures for the people that are a part of it. So many of the leaders, teams, and organizations that I support recognize the importance of raising the level of trust within their teams and earning that trust of their teammates. That is just a fundamental of highly functioning teams, is levels of trust, highly functioning relationships, high levels of trust, that we earn that with our teammates. And as the leader, you want people to trust you, of course, and where you're heading as a team. But as we know, trust isn't as simple as just people blindly trusting you. There's a process to it. Great cultures are built on trust and are committed to building trust within their teams and recognize when there are opportunities that arise to develop trust further. So, on today's episode, we're revisiting the popular topic of why trusting the process, quote unquote, trusting the process is so difficult for people. We'll break down what truly is at play when leaders urge people to quote-unquote trust the process, and what we can learn when we recognize there might be some slight hesitation within our teams. Why aren't they trusting the process? What can we learn from it, and what will we do next? But before we dive into today's topic, let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually, with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Trust the process. You've heard that statement thousands, if not millions of times. Trust the process. We hear it from leaders of all kinds. You've heard it from coaches in sports saying it all the time at a press conference or at a team situation, or anytime they're in front of a microphone, they tell everybody to just trust the process. You've heard it from political leaders in good times and in certainly times of crisis. They say it. Trust the process. You've heard it from teachers or educators, administrators, parents, and certainly business leaders across sectors that say, trust the process. But is it really that easy? And why do we sense hesitancy in people to quote-unquote trust the process? We hear it from leaders all the time, and we hear people say, hey, everybody, relax, just trust the process. But there are reasons why it isn't as easy for people to just trust the process. So today's episode, we're going to break that down. And trusting the process itself is a good thing, and I understand why leaders say it and why we try to instill confidence in the people around us to say, hey, relax, trust the process, dive into the process that we're in. I understand why we say it. But also, I understand, especially through my work with supporting leaders, teams, and organizations, I see when there's hesitancy from people throughout a cultural ecosystem to quote-unquote trust the process, it should tell us something. And we should step back and we should listen to what is it we're learning and what are we observing and reflecting on when we see the people around us hesitating and not being able to just so easily and blindly trust the process. So let's break it down a little bit. The first thing we need to unpack is the very first word of this phrase. Trust the process, the very first word is trust. And it should come to no surprise that one of the things that makes people hesitate with the process itself is the very first word, trust, because trust is not automatic. We like to believe it is, but trust is not automatic. We humans don't just hand it out. We don't just hand out trust on the regular. We don't just do it automatically without thinking about it. Trust doesn't just magically happen. We like to believe that we blindly make decisions to trust people, and I do believe, by the way, it does start with a choice, that we make choice as human beings to say, am I going to extend this person trust? But the trust itself doesn't just magically happen. In fact, trust is bartered back and forth between two people in a relationship or across a team or ecosystem of people. Trust is bartered every single day and every single moment with the people around us. With some, the trust and the market of that relationship or the investment in that relationship goes up and down on the day or in given situations or moment to moment, depending on whether or not we follow up with what we say we're going to do or we don't. And so trust can be volatile in that way because we don't always know what we're going to get from somebody. And so I do believe that we make a choice to trust someone, and we extend trust, and we then barter back and forth with each other. We invest trust in that person, but we ourselves are also showing people each day whether or not we are building the level of trust. We continue to make investments back into the other person, and they are doing the same thing with us. So with others, value is accrued over time based on those small barters and behaviors with a relationship that build up value over a longer period of time. So we first make a choice as to whether we will begin this process with somebody to barter that level of trust back and forth, and then we give each other a chance, and then the market of our relationship begins to be built over time based on whether or not we do what we say we're going to do. We back up it with action, and therefore, every time we do back it up, we build a level of social equity within that relationship or that team or that ecosystem, and every time we don't, it deteriorates. It takes a withdrawal from our relationship in that bank account of the relationship. So over time, it's going to play out whether we do, or can trust in the person based on our bartering investment of that trust back and forth. So to blindly say to somebody, trust the process, is ignoring the giant human reality that we are able to trust the messenger. So again, we make a choice that we're going to trust, and I understand again why leaders and teams and organizations say trust the process, but we have to recognize that first beginning of it, the word trust, is something that we're going to barter with each other and build over time. And so we need to begin the relationship, but then we're going to have to back it up with actions and behaviors. And so the other element of this is trusting the process also has to do with the messenger. And so in many situations, the leader, again, whether that's the coach or the political leader or the CEO or the parent or the pastor or the department head of the organization or whoever that is in the relationship, one of the reasons why it's also not always easy for people to just blindly trust the process is because maybe the messenger themselves hasn't earned that level of trust with the people that they're sharing the message with. So somebody that you don't have a lot of social equity build up in that relationship who says to you, trust the process, again, if you don't have that level of trust built up, then one of the reasons why we're hesitant is because of that lacking of that we're not really sure about the messenger. So the other, so right at play there, of course, is our ability to make the choice to trust, but then also to recognize, and if we sense a level of hesitancy that we're saying it to our team or to the people around us or a relationship to trust the process, and we're seeing hesitancy, then it might tell us that we as the messenger have an opportunity to build or raise our level of trust and make sure that we begin to think that way. The second element of that we might see that's at play of our hesitancy with trusting the process is that trust is often derived when people understand the plan or understanding the good faith of what the process actually is. So we may make a choice to trust, and we may even trust the messenger, but do we understand the vision for the actual process, for the actual plan? What actually is it? And if we don't know, or we don't understand the process, or the ideology, or the approach, or the philosophy, what is the actual game plan, then we shouldn't just blindly trust the process. Human beings need to have a basic understanding of, well, what is the process? What is the timeline? What's our philosophy? What's our approach? What's the high-level game plan? Even if we're not going to spell it out in every single detail, when people don't understand what the process is, it's hard for people to trust the process blindly. And so we need to understand the high-level approach. And then hopefully we've built up enough trust in the leader and over time to trust them to lead others to activate that vision or that plan and go along the process. So if any hesitancy from your team or you experience any hesitancy from the people around you, it might be revealing that more trust needs to be built with you as the leader. And it might be an opportunity then for you to say, how can I listen better? Maybe I need to connect more individually with my team members. And what is it going to look like for me to invest more in that level of trust with others? It also may be, if there's any hesitancy, and not only, and you might be thinking, I feel like I have a high level trusting relationship with the people, but you're still experiencing hesitancy, it may be because they don't have clarity on what that vision is, what the approach is, what the actual process is. So is there an opportunity to help clarify what the approach is, what the vision is for the future, and how the timeline that we're going to commit to for that process? Then the last element of our hesitancy or our inability to just blindly, quote unquote, trust the process is the reality that the process itself will take time. And so this is one of the last elements of why it's hard for people to just blindly trust the process and why it becomes difficult, because trust is something we barter back and forth and we earn with each other. And so every relationship, there's an opportunity for that. And also because we may not understand what the process is, but if those two things are in alignment and we do have those elements at play, then the last element that sometimes can make it hard for people or difficult for people to trust the process is the fact that the process itself will take time. And so it requires us to be patient, and we have to follow the steps. We got to be willing to follow the plan, actually give the process itself, the plan, the approach, time to work. And the reality is, we know this, that we as humans, that becomes difficult for many of us because we live in a fast food world. We live in an instantaneous culture. We can Google any question we have in the world and in 0.2 seconds have 4 million answers. And so giving things time to develop is often difficult for most people. The process only works if we honor the fact that it will take time, and it won't happen overnight. The process itself, building trust and actualizing any vision of significance, is not an overnight experience. The process will require trust and time and discipline. We've got to be willing to let things marinate, and we got to be willing to let things, seeds to be planted, things to grow and develop. So oftentimes we need examples, we need metaphors and things that help us, understand and connect back to the fact that we are in the midst of a process, even in the midst of a world that's moving so quickly, and we want the answers right now. So examples, or whatever your metaphor du jour is that you need, it helps us remember that the process itself takes time. So baking a cake, takes time for the cake itself to actually bake. You don't just stick it in the oven and then magically it's done. And so allowing ourselves time to actually bake it is part of that process. Planting a garden takes time to not only plant the seeds, but water the seeds and help them grow. Humans, we know this, that our own growth and development takes time. We go to school over a number of years. We know our careers and the experiences and the path we've walked and the things that we've learned and accumulated along the time, that's how we grow and develop over time. So those metaphors or those ways of remembering and examples help us remember that the process itself takes time, and oftentimes we just need to honor that process. And so when I lead teams and companies through the culture shaping process, or in developing of people, emerging leaders, or onboarding of new employees, or developing the senior leadership team, oftentimes in the development of culture and leaders, I often say, trust the process. But I also understand that part of the process is I know I'm going to have to build that level of trust, and they're going to need to build that level of trust with me. And so every company, every leadership team, every event that I speak at, I know when I walk in the room that one of my first opportunities and challenges is to build a level of trust with the people there, that I am the messenger. And so I understand that there is a period there where we are going to be getting to know each other and building that level of trust with each other. And we also need to understand the path or the plan or that path forward. What is the vision for the culture that we're trying to create? Which is why I spend time to help people see the framework, the pattern that all change theories follow. If you study change theory, which I know many people don't sit around and study, but really it shows us that the pattern of the way that we as individuals or we collectively change, it all follows a pattern. And so part of the process is, and I talk about the 6A process for leading change, which is my framework based on change theories, and giving people easier language to wrap their head around. But we'll walk that together of the 6 A's of the process for change is we got to be able to assess and understand. And again, I've done whole podcasts about this 6A process for leading change. So if you want to dive deeper into this, you can check out one of the older episodes where I dive into each of the 6 A's of leading change. But we've got to be able to assess. Part of the process is understanding where are we? What are we doing well? What are we not doing well? We need to align, which that's the building of the relationships and bringing human beings together in alignment so that we can build that level of trust. We need to aspire, which means painting that vision. What is aspirationally, what is it we're trying to create together? And then we've got to be able to articulate it. And so based on the vision or based on the mission, based on the core values that we want to guide us as we move forward, how do we articulate that to the people around us? And then we've got to tie it to action. What are we going to go do because of this? And lastly, how are we going to anchor it? So in culture shaping, the anchoring of the type of culture we're trying to create in the future is how do we anchor it in the way that we hire, in the way that we do onboarding, the way we do emerging leaders and identify them and develop them intentionally. All of those things point us to the fact that the process itself is what we need to walk. And we can't skip a step. We can't just magically get to the end. So trust in our relationships is a process that we will build and will be built. It will be invested in. It will be developed over time. And the trust of our vision for the future will be directly tied to the people around us, trusting in us and allowing us to share that vision for the future. And as we help people build trust through the process, our outcomes are better. So I hope this was helpful for you today, and I want to leave you, as always, with some questions to ponder. What processes are you right now, and what are you processing right now in your life and your work? And, what trust needs to be built with the people around you? What is the trust that you want to invest in with the people around you? What is needed for you to better trust the process? When you think about the people in your life or in your work, is it a matter of needing to trust individuals better, or trust the process, understand the process more, or just trusting in allowing it to have time, to move through the process? So who is it that you trust, and where is it that there's an opportunity to build that level of trust with the people, with the plan, or with the time that it will require? Remember, everything takes time. If you don't trust, it may be because you don't trust the messenger. It may be the leader. It may be you don't understand the process, or it may be that you're too sped up and it's hard for you to take the time to trust the time that it will take to actually follow the process and put one foot in front of the other. So I hope today's episode got you thinking in some new ways. If a deeper dive into any of these topics is interesting to you, please reach out to us at info@jasonvbarger.com, info@jasonvbarger.com, and let us know. We'll continue to design content to help meet you where you are and continue to hopefully support and contribute and add value to the way you're thinking about that temperature you're trying to set in your life and your work. I hope you'll go back and listen to old episodes and continue to engage with this podcast. Cheers to all of us on the path ahead. And remember that the future of leadership is you, is me, is us. We have the opportunity to get clear on the temperature that we're trying to set, and then to be courageous and committed to breathe oxygen, good oxygen, into our own mindsets, and then on our actions, and then certainly the collective actions and mindsets that we breathe into others so that we can sustain us for the path forward. So step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.